Hello, welcome Dr. Sushma Singh this side. Today in Unit 8 Census Perspective, we are continuing the topic the census and identity politics. At the census level, perhaps it involved nothing more serious than a change in name, but more important was wider processes that it set in motion. Previously dispersed subcaste or caste recognized themselves by forming caste sabhas, while the demand for increased material benefits in the form of scholarships or recruitment to the army were often an essential part of their demands. Internal social reform, providing scholarships to their own community, etc., were also common. A pamphlet Nai Abrahaman by Pandit Revati Prasad Sharma, while part of the claims of the Nes to Brahman status, calls upon fellow castemen, all the educated members of the community all over the India. Let us join and gather ourselves under the flag of the Akhil Bharatiya Naya Brahman Mahasabha to consider upon the way of amalgamation of the society, collecting funds, awarding scholarships, and imparting education and strength to the community. The Census Commissioner reaction to this outpour of caste petition was generally one of amused irritation. Usually commissioners ruled in favor of or against the change even when clearly they had no competency to do so. In terms of religious or social knowledge, at certain times the reaction was one of the indifference. J.S. Houghton, Census Commissioner in 1931, for the example, noted on the Nemo Brahma case that it did not matter in the least what they are called so long as the community was identifiable from one census to the next. The second point is complaints about the form of questions or tabulations in 1930s and 1940s. There were two prominent contexts in which complaints about the format in which the respondents were asked to return themselves surfaced. In some way, both were connected with growing Hindu communal assertion, even though ostensibly they were about recording caste. At the same time, the answers bring out very clearly a firm commitment to a colonial view of Indian society as irreparably characterized by divisive caste and religious categories. The first was the petition by various Hindu sabhas as well as the Jat Path Torak Mandal, at organization connected by the Arya Samaj in Lahore, asking not to have caste returns in the census. The Jat Path Torak Mandal was a society made up of adult Hindu who pledged to enter into intercaste marriage either themselves or for their children. In their petition to have caste returns in the census waived for those who did not believe in it, they argued that since the caste system was not an essential part of Hinduism, had impeded the progress of the community, and since many of the educated sections had been greatly changed by Western education and culture, there is an overwhelming majority who have lost faith in the utility of caste. They emphasized that to record caste against the name of an individual when it does not believe in it would be forcing caste upon him, and further that the census clerks are not expected and should not import their personal knowledge into the census operation. The Hindu Mahasabha did not want to cast census so that they could show that Hindus were numerous and united in order to counter Muslim demands for representation. The Muslim League was similarly resistant to the idea of the recording caste among Muslims. The government made it clear that while it was prepared to allow conscientious objectors like the various reform sects to return themselves as having no caste, it objected to orthodox Hindu refusing to answer the question when socially they followed caste rules. The fact that a mere 1.8 million out of 238 million Hindu returned no caste in 1931 was later cited as evidence that Indians were very caste conscious. While it is true that this is a very small figure, it is equally clear that the majority were not given the choice of returning no caste. Even if respondents had no return their own caste, the numerator would have done it for them. In fact, in 1941, the number of people returning no caste, especially in Bengal, was large enough to prompt the Census Commissioner to note that in time the caste question could be easily set aside in favor of a community question. Another major demand of the Hindu Mahasabha was that Adivasis should be returned as Hindus on the resolution of a local Hindu Sabha in Assam. During this period, the Hindu Sabha were also active in proselytizing among tribes, highlighting the similarities between their religion and that of the Hindus. The demand for Adivasis to be termed Hindu became quite strident in Chota Nagpur. Village meetings of Sanatani Adivasis were held by October. In December 1940, resolutions were passed and reported in newspaper, accusing the Catholic Sabha of asking numerators to record tribal names for non-Christian Adivasis. Most of those presiding over the meetings or going in deputation to the Census Commissioner, however, appear to be Hindu townspeople who looked down on Adivasis. Their views were reflected in the Amrit Bazar Patrika editorial. By the by, what is this tribal religion? What are its tenets? Does any such thing really exist in this country? As against this, the Bihar government also received a large number of petitions from the individual Adivasis and associations representing them, claiming that they had not been given a hearing before the census instructions were issued. A large meeting of Muslims attended by various dual caste and Adivasis representatives was held to counter a Hindu meeting on the 6th. There were complaints that Hindu numerators had circulated Congress and Mahasabha leaflets containing the misinformation that government had ordered that Adivasis should be recorded as Hindus. Similar problems were seen in terms of how to return Sikhs and Jains with the Hindu Mahasabha and some Sikh and Jains organizations asking for them to be classified as Hindus. And several complaints by the representatives of the scheduled caste associations, Sikh, Jain and Buddhist against being recorded as Hindus, and pointing to Hindu Mahasabha pressure through numerable volunteers, numerators and supervisors. Home public on 6 represent protesting against the refusal of numerators to record them as Sikhs. petition signed by Jain association all over the country noted that community was in danger of being assimilated by Hindus owing to their illiteracy and the fact that they were scattered. The column is quite necessary to study the problems of the community and also to keep alive the consciousness of its being an independent community. There could be similar regions by an oppressed caste which had developed its own counterculture would want to maintain the consciousness of itself as separate. In Punjab, Dalit caste like Choharas complained of pressure to be recorded as Sikhs or Hindus by Sikh and Hindu numerators and demanded that their religion be entered as Adidharam. The proposal was initially opposed by the Hutton on the ground that since they owned their disability precisely to the fact that they were Hindus, they should be returned as Hindus, thus revealing a view of caste and as instinctively bound up with purity and pollution rather than economic stand. The same concept of caste appears to be operative in the current policy denying reservation to the Dalit of other religion, for example, Dalit Christians. In short, the census of 1931 and 1941, in the years before partition and independence, had been dragged into disputes between communal forces who wanted to expand their own numbers at the expense of others. In the process, the distinct religion and the culture of Adivasis and other groups like Jains and Sikhs were under threat. Here we want to close this lecture. Thanks for listening.